Hello, my friends. Today, what's on my mind is the Lord has been showing me a lot of what's going to happen um, to the people in the world who are the Jews, which are known as Christians to us. So many different things the church doesn't understand because she doesn't know God, she doesn't know her importance. Uh, Satan, from the beginning, made man believe that man is lower than him. So it's just like how oppression comes into the world. The majority is always oppressed by the minority, but the minority are the ones who gain the power. We see it playing out in the nations right now. We see it playing out in culture because the majority do not feel clean enough on the inside themselves to take a stand against that which is completely filthy. It's everybody filthy on the inside, but one refusing to stand up for the good deeds that they do because they still feel filthy on the inside so much that they can't make that stand. This is the power of Satan. It's the power of Antichrist at work in the world. You see it play out every single day on the news and television and the culture and the media and everything. It plays out all day long, even in your own workplace, in your own environment. It plays out like this every day because it's a minority of angels who has oppressed heaven. Remember, 2/3 of the angels stayed. Only a third of them fell. That's God saying, hey, a third of the humans will also do the same thing, and they will oppress 2/3 of the others. And that's exactly what we see playing out. The moment that the church recognizes this piece of scripture is about them, that's the moment that they will once again follow Jesus Christ. And they will actually believe and understand who they are, that they are the apple of God's eye. It's not the Jews who are living in Israel. It's the people living in Western civilization, in the land of the North, in America, North America. It's not Russia that God sent those poor Jews after World War II from Russia that came down and give them their own land in Israel to make it amends for everything that's happened to them. That is oppression. That is the Antichrist spirit. They gave not out of the goodness of their heart, but they gave out of the wickedness of their own deeds. The church looks at Jeremiah 16 and they say this: However, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when it will no longer be said, As surely as the Lord lives, who brought the Israelites up out of Egypt, but it will be said, As surely as the Lord lives, who brought the Israelites up out of the land of the north and out of all of the countries where he had banished them, for I will restore them to the land I gave their ancestors. The church looks at Jeremiah 16:14, and it says that happened in 1948. No, it didn't happen in 1948. It looked like this, but it's not this. What happened after World War II was that the United Nations and America, the Antichrist, formed their own little system and gave power to the Jews. It's the harlot giving power to her harlot daughter. That's what was fulfilled. The end times began right at that point because it was fulfilled like that. God didn't do that. That was America. That was the world. The world doesn't understand the hand of God. Nobody does anymore. When the hand of God comes into the world, there's no debating it. It's not, well, it looks like it was fulfilled. It might have been fulfilled. You're going to know it was fulfilled because it's going to be a power that you've never witnessed before. Have we witnessed one nation given to another nation of peoples? Yes, it happens all the time. Look at the Middle East today. It's constantly divided and given away by other nations who rule them. That's what happens in the world. It happens every day. But when the power of God comes over of the world and it does whatever it's going to do, you're not going to have to sit there and debate, well, was that the United Nations or was that God? And that's the mistake that the church gets into. They look at the synagogue of Satan, those who are currently residing in Israel, and they look at them like they're God's chosen people, because that's what Satan makes them believe. Because they follow the lie, they seek it down, they see things happening, they don't understand what's happening, but well, that must be God because that's what it looks like is written. I said America is the Antichrist, and it is because a third of America is. 2/3 of America is not. 2/3 of America is God and godly people. But they don't recognize it, so hence they give in to that 1/3. Same thing which happened in heaven. So whenever they look at this scripture, they see 1948, they see that now we have the Jews coming from the Northland, which they think is Russia, down into Israel, the land of the ancestors, that fulfilled it. What is actually going to happen, and when the church realizes this, they will be born again themselves. The hand of God will fulfill it for them, because there is going to be a cataclysmic event happen on the earth, so much so that the waters will part between North America and the land of their ancestors. Because remember, America was the promise that Abraham received. God fulfilled the promise of Abraham in America, the land where all peoples come to this rich nation and they live with the glory of God. That was fulfilled in America. That was Abraham's promise. But God now is saying, I'm going to take everybody from all of the lands that I've put them through, and they're all going to come back to the land of the ancestors. So that means it's going to be an exodus from America, and it will be a valley of the shadow of the death, because the water is going to be surrounding all the continents, and God is going to part the seas and make a land from North America all the way to Israel. And all of the other nations, European nations, Canada, all these other nations in the world where there remains Jews, they will be able to then also make the journey to get to that valley of the shadow of death where they will walk it. When the church realizes, when they're on the journey and they realize that Jeremiah 16 was talking about them, then you'll have a church that'll be faithful and they'll understand. No longer will they look at the pity that their ancestors had on a particular group of people and then elevated them to just give them a piece of land. No longer will they look at that pity that Satan made sure happened and believe that that was the works of God. God allows everything happen for a reason. He wants people to look and seek for the truth, because it's easy to believe that. What it's not easy to believe is what Jesus Christ actually spoke. That's the hard thing to believe. Because of people who have been teaching Jeremiah 16 for the last 70 years like it was fulfilled. Because of the teachers of the law who are Jews but do not know they are Jews, so they speak as something different. Because they think that those who deny Jesus Christ are somehow greater than them, given more power than them after Christ. They've been teaching this and misleading people for the last 70 years. The church will realize who she is when she walks in that exodus, just like Moses and Israel did before. It will be the two witnesses and the 144,000 at that point in time who will then gather all of the Jews in the world who are banished everywhere, not just to Russia. They literally look at this and they say, well, because 85% of the Jews come from Russia, that means the land of the north was fulfilled. God sent Christians all over the whole world, and he had to, because the gospel has to be preached to the entire world, and then the end comes. They can't see this because they're blind to it. They stumble over their own feet because they do not know God. They only know what each other teaches each other, and not a one of them have been taught by God. So they believe this scripture was fulfilled. But I sit here and I tell you today that when it is actually fulfilled, that's the moment that you'll really have a church. Because then she'll understand the whole time that she was looking at somebody else, believing the devil was the one in power instead of her. My friends, you're made in the image of God. You already have that power. You're greater than the angels because you're in God's image. Don't ever let Satan, in the middle of this war in the heavens that has already begun on earth, don't ever let Satan deceive you into believing you're lower than his minions, the synagogue of Satan, because you're not. Currently residing in the land of our ancestors is a people living in Israel who are a people living in sin. It is the gayest nation, the gayest country in the entire world. And we look at them and say that's good. Well, they're still God's people. God's going to rescue and save them. How's he going to save them? They don't even believe in Jesus Christ. Why don't they believe in Jesus Christ? Because they're not Jews. But who does believe in Jesus Christ? The Christians, who really are Jews. But because they're called Christians, they don't believe, Paul, that there is either Jew nor Gentile in this age. All of it comes back to square one, because the teachers of the law have taught and deceived people doing the works of Satan for the last 70 years on this topic. That's why they look at the Jews living in Israel currently as fulfilling the scripture, without ever realizing that the hand of God is going to fulfill the scripture, and it's going to fulfill it through them. God bless, because these things are coming, and they're coming quickly. As I said in the last video, God cannot tarry. He must move swiftly. We see the earthquakes picking up everywhere. The whole planet is trembling, just like God said it would be, because the birthing pains are reaching their maximum points before delivery. And what causes a great distress? What causes all of these beached whales that we see, all these birds falling out of the sky, all these cattle not acting like they ever have? What causes earthquakes in diverse places? What causes all of these things? A body in the heavens getting closer to Earth, changing Earth's gravity. Have you ever set up your bed in your room and it's facing one way and you just don't feel right about it? So you turn the bed clockwise, just, I don't know, 90 degrees clockwise, and you face it the other way. And suddenly you lay down and you just feel better, you sleep better. Did you ever know that cows, whenever they're grazing, 90% of the cows that are grazing will stand north and south? It's for a reason, because we have things inside of us that we don't even recognize. The reason why people are all looking for answers in our generation is because deep down inside, people know something's coming that's going to destroy us. It's going to erase all the progress that we ever had. It's going to be here a moment, gone the next. And the whole world, instead of preparing for that moment by calling out to anyone who will come and save them from it, they'd rather look at the works of the world, the wicked works of the world, and believe it over believing that they have the power of God in themselves. When this scripture gets fulfilled, when this heavenly body that's coming to destroy this whole earth gets closer and a piece breaks off of it, if your eye causes you to sin, gouge it out and throw it down. Well, God, now he's sending little tiny asteroid meteors down to the earth, isn't he? They're happening all over the place. Fireballs blowing up in the sky, fireballs hitting the earth. Because he's saying, here's my eyes, I'm throwing you eyes, I'm giving you little specks, giving you specks, but you're not going to want to wait for that plank, because when the plank comes out of the eye, it's going to be a much bigger body, isn't it? God has made warnings before the body of this asteroid. You want to call it wormwood, you want to call it the destroyer, whatever you want to call it. He's cutting away pieces of that body and sending them down to Earth, so that people will wake up and say, hey, there's volcanoes everywhere, there's earthquakes everywhere, the animals are acting strange, I'm acting strange. What could possibly be causing this? Gravity is what causes those kind of things. God's little things that he put in the world, the material world, which the spirit can interpret because it's natural for man. The spirit has nothing to do with gravity, but natural man does. Remember, natural man, before he be born again, he doesn't know anything about heaven. When he be born again, he does. He begins to learn it. But before that, he's natural man. He's carnal. He's the same as the animals that are grazing in the field. Well, you know what I've seen a lot of? Natural man trying to figure out what's going on right now. And what causes all of these things that we see happening on earth? A large heavenly body getting closer to us. Yet it's remaining unseen by us. But we are getting God cutting off the eyeballs, throwing it down. When he cuts the hand and the arm off, that's going to be a lot different story. When he takes the plank out of the eye next, it's going to be a little bit different story. You're going to see these things hit and the world's going to be alarmed by them. But when you see these things happen, you know that the big body is the one that awaits, and that's the one that erases everything on the planet. But when the time comes to fulfill Jeremiah 16, whatever the size of this piece of rock that God hurls to the earth that makes this valley of the shadow of the death, as I call it, because that's what it's going to be. It's going to be A single strip of land, a valley, from North America all the way to the land of our ancestors, Israel. And the church will walk it. The church will walk it. It's not going to be the Jews. The Jews in Israel right now, they're not Jews. They're the synagogue of Satan. They've replaced Christians as God's chosen people because the Christians allowed them to do it because they worship themselves. So they worship something by the name of Jew because inwardly they're Jews and they want to worship themselves, so they worship outwardly Jews. But outwardly Jews are not inwardly children of God. They're the synagogue of Satan. But when this large body hits, and this valley of land appears, and the Christians walk in Exodus to the land of their ancestors, guess what they will be guided by? A great lampstand that will not go out. God will make sure every last one of them, the 2/3 of the world who call out to his name, will make it. And they will say, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord on the day he returns." The Lord will make sure they make it. Do not be deceived by the teachers of the law because they do not know Christ. Follow the Spirit wherever it points and learn from it. See yourself. Once you see yourself and know who you are, you'll know everything else that's coming. In this scripture, Jeremiah 16, when it's fulfilled, then so too will the church know who they were the whole time. God bless.